recorded and get going here. So I'm gonna hide this away, share my screen. All right. So going to talk about just some lingo, or I guess there may be some things that I haven't ever gone over with you guys about training. The RPE scale, so what you're clicking when you finish your workout of how hard that workout was. I'm going to dive into that a little bit. Failure reps. So I haven't really talked to you guys about failure either, like training to failure, or what reps and reserve are. So I'll go into all of that. So the RPE scale is the rate of perceived exertion. So that is used to measure how hard you feel like that workout was for you. How tired you were, how out of breath you were, or how hard it was for you to do that activity. And I found this online because this is actually a way that we like to moderate training for people in the medical field. So in physical therapy, we use the RPE scale a lot, especially with cardiac rehab patients. But I thought this was kind of interesting to find this sort of chart here to show with emojis, because I think that makes a lot more sense if you look at the emojis. You're like, yeah, I felt like that one today or whatever. So it goes from 1 to 2 is very light intensity. You have a little happy emoji. 3 to 4 is still light intensity. 5 to 6, moderate. 7 to 8, pretty vigorous, which most of you will probably be training majority of the time. I would like to see you within that 7 to 8 range. And then the 9 to 10 is maximum intensity. That is maybe at the point where you're throwing up, like it's very intense. So it's a way for me and you guys to self-regulate your training intensity. In the personal setting, it can be used to determine your training intensity as opposed to using percentages. So as you notice, I never really give you guys percentages to work with on weights. I just kind of give you a rep range, and I'll go based off of your RPE scale. So after you submit a workout, whatever, I see if you've been hanging out in that 9 to 10 RPE scale, we're going to have to modify some things here, because that your first workout might feel like that. But you shouldn't be hanging out that all the time, because that's basically you training to failure, and failure to failure training, really not appropriate, and probably get you to a point of overtraining where we're not doing you enough good. So on a coaching level, the RPE can be a way to gain an understanding of an athlete's level of exhaustion, and also what you have left in the tank. That's a good way to look at it too. So who can benefit? So science has shown the benefit in both novice and experienced lifters, but experienced lifters tend to benefit more as they have a higher training age. So using the RPE scale is fairly good for basically anywhere in that novice to experienced level of lifters. And honestly, I like to use it more for intermediate, like novice to intermediate. More advanced lifters, I would start to use what I'm going to talk about later on is reps in reserve. I haven't really talked to any of you guys about that, but that is what I would use for somebody that is more that higher level. And how you use it, like you guys know, when you finish your workouts, you'll put in your rate of perceived exertion, anywhere from 1 to 10. I kind of went over what all that looks like. They interpret different things, and this also correlates into the strength world as well. So maybe you feel like you could rate that for your endurance runs, but it also goes into more of your strength training workouts as well. So at a 10, you would be at your max. You have no more reps to push. You're done. That's failure. 9 is there is one more rep left in the tank, but it is still a grind. 8, you're beginning to hit your 2 to 4 rep stride. 7, often the way that can be moved with power, but still facilitates strength. So 5 to 7-ish reps is about a 5 or about a 7 on the RPE scale for strengthening. 6, it was weight that can be moved pretty quick and utilized with speed work. So it's more of like your circuit training. You're probably going to be somewhere between that 6 to 7 range for your RPE scale. And like on a 5 would be that weight was used as warm up or prep for heavier lifts, which we do a lot. Anything 4 and below on the RPE scale is related to lightweight that can be used for mobility, recovery, form emphasis, a lot of that. So most of you, when you do your mobility workout, I do see you put like a 1 to 2. So that's actually a very perfect spot for you to be, because it shouldn't be too hard. It's mobility work. So the current research has Use the squat, the bench press, and deadlift RPEs were as followed. So for people who were testing this, I think I have to let somebody in. Hold on real quick. So the people who were testing their RPEs related to their max reps for their deadlift, bench press, or squat, they were rating it about a 9.6, 9.7, blah, 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 from the above list that I mentioned. So this would suggest that an athlete doesn't have one more rep in the tank, suggesting that RPE is beneficial tool for prescribing training intensities. So I don't ever have you guys train to your max, but if you were and you rate your RPE, if you're doing a deadlift day, or your maxing day, or your testing day, whatever it is, and you rate it at like a 9 point, or like it'd be a 9, or maybe it's a 10, then that should be true because you would have no more reps in the tank. So that's a good way to look at that as well. And a little note here is experienced lifters tend to understand their bodies better and what they can handle, which will be why it's a little more accurate when deciding RPEs at high intensities. Rather, a novice lifter may underplay the amount that they can move for a certain number of reps. So this is just another little blurb about how many reps are left in reserve. So I'm going to talk about that in a second, but this is reps in reserve. So there's a difference between the RPE scale and reps in reserve. It's a different way to look at it, kind of mean the same thing. If you're at a 10, that would be your absolute maximum. 9.5 to 9, there's like one more rep left in the tank. 8.5, there's 1 to 2, 8, 2, so on and so on. So reps in reserve, also abbreviated RIR, is how many more reps you can do before failure, technical failure, or actually missing that lift. So below, I have written down more of that RIR used for reference in technical failure. So again, a 1 rep in reverse or rep in reserve is you have 1 rep left, 1 rep away from failure. So you're pushing your weight, and you're at, say you're at 8 reps, and you're supposed to hit about 10 or whatever. So if you're reaching your rep in reserve and you're at 8 and you feel like, well, I can actually go like 4 more with this weight, that means you have 4 more reps in reserve, and it's just a little bit too easy for you. So this would be progressing more towards that training failure. So just remember that if whatever you feel like you could do left would be your reps in reserve. 0 RIR would mean 0 reps away from your failure, like your max failure. So the RPE scale of 8 and the 2 reps in reserve are the same thing, as they should be, right? So if you're at 8 reps, you would have 2 left in the tank. And if we're going on that 10 rep basis, and then the RPE scale, 8 out of 10, that's that very intense. That's not the one where you're at a 9 out of 10, you're dying. That shows it's the same thing. So it could be a bit redundant saying them both the same thing, but I never write this on your guys' programs this way. But I just wanted to leave this as a little blurb in here that they are the same thing, and it's just a different way to utilize intensity for training. And then there is something else called as heavy as form allows. Never heard of that before in regards to training intensity, but I thought I would just put it on here. And I guess this is the same thing used for that as well. So never heard of that. So why would we use RIR? So number 1, training hard versus training smart. I would not ever want you guys to train to failure, like a 1 rep max failure type of failure. You're probably training to failure most times. If you're hitting your 10 reps or whatever, and you cannot do 1 more rep, that's training to failure, right? So there's a difference between training hard and training smart, but it's important to do this the smart way so we can do this for a long time. But training hard also meaning as intensity. We want to make sure we're hard, we're pushing intensity for muscle hypertrophy. So staying further away from failure can be useful for getting to a new movement or to develop power. I actually urge not to train to failure, like I said, and more of like that 2 to 3 max rep range. So if you're ever having your testing day where we're testing for your max, I want you to just try to go to a 2 to 3 rep max, because there's just too much failure that happens with actually training to a 1 rep max. I don't personally like it. I know a lot of people in the strength training world still utilize it because they have competitions based off of that. But there are things that you can do, like a one rep max calculator you can find online. You can put in how much weight you use for, let's say, 3 reps, and that can correlate to what your 1 rep max would be. This also allows you to personalize sessions. So it gives you the opportunity to personalize each of your training sessions to meet your demands due to differences in preparedness. So how much strength level you have, your technique and experience compared to your daily readiness. How was your recovery? Are you recovering? Are you at that good capacity to train right now? And neuromuscular efficiency. So there can be big differences between athletes on how hard a 1 rep max can be for one person compared to the other in a given training session. So this definitely puts some personalization on it. It's also good if you don't know your 1 rep max or maybe a 3 rep max like I talked about. It's useful for that. If you haven't tested it for a while, or if it's a movement such as a single arm dumbbell row, where not many people even test a 1 rep max for that, because that's just interesting. But I typically keep in my notes on my phone, I will keep my PRs in my notes. So if I am doing something like, oh, I want to see if I've gotten stronger at a single arm dumbbell row, I'll put that exercise in there and I'll write how much weight I use for how many reps. And I'm usually trying to stick within that like 3 to 5 rep range to see if I'm recreating that same weight, or if I'm doing heavier and more reps. Well, that means I could definitely do 3 reps and way more weight than the last time. But I like to, aside from breaking up the big lifts, a squat, deadlift, bench, overhead press, and pull up, I like to also gauge some other things like, what's the heaviest I've done for RDLs? Like I'll keep that in a log as well. So it's all kind of in there. And then when I look into my notes, I just can type in and search PRs and it pulls them all up. So it's also just, if you're just actually curious and you're a person that likes to try to beat yourself, I know you guys have the app and that works too. But just like a quick reference, I like it that way as well. So you have it on your phone all the time. And training hard and training smart, again, it gives a structured way to teach you how to train hard. That's the important part. While keeping your effort appropriate to the stimulus we're looking for, and training smart to regulate training to your current level, readiness, stress factors, sleep, nutrition, training volume, et cetera, et cetera. So failure reps, max reps, and training to failure. So there's actually 2 types of failure. Number 1, mechanical failure, where your body cannot complete that range of motion for the rep. You either failed during the rep, or actually, yeah, that's failure, or you can't possibly lift that up again because you've already completed that rep. You cannot do one more. That's mechanical failure. Keynote here is the body, right? There's also mental failure, where your mind will not let you push one more rep. And most people actually fail here and not mechanical failure, meaning you are going to give up on yourself before your body is ready to give up. So just remember that in the back of your mind. There are 2 types of failure. Did you actually fail based off of mechanical failure, or was it mental failure? You actually just decided to tap out yourself. You gave up on yourself. This is where it's really awesome to have a training partner. I don't actually hardly ever train with somebody, but if I'm going to be testing for maxes and really trying to push some weights, I will either find somebody from like the floor and pull them and have them help me, number 1, with form, or 2, with helping me in case something goes wrong. They can grab it real quick. And for analyzing things like this for me of like, actually, yeah, your form is great. I don't know why you gave up on that. You probably could have done a couple more. So it is nice to have training partners for this aspect right here. But I never recommend training to absolute mechanical failure, as that leads to more injury. So that's actually breaking through that rep. Like you can't complete that rep. So take failure as failure with like a 2 to 3 reps left in the tank before form completely shits. Most trainers and coaches won't say this, but too many injuries I've seen in the rehab setting have been from mechanical failure with poop form. So best way to do this though is to have good form, but your body is smart. So if you're going for heavy weight, it's going to try to do whatever possible to get that task done for you, which mostly means sometimes form goes to crap. So very, very important that we have a good basis of technique and form down as we're working into these challenging weights, because that's what's going to set us up for success so we don't have these injuries. And they can happen Trust me, a lot of people get hernias. And I asked them, you know, when did you get that? And they were like, well, I was deadlifting back in high school. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Because nobody knows what they were doing in high school. They were just told, put more weight on, like never about form, technique, or anything. And there was no gauging. There was no progressive training. We didn't even have to weight train for track and field. I remember that was like, if you wanted to, you could, I guess, do it, but nobody was there to help or guide you. Like, you didn't know what you were doing. So whatever, that's another thing. But have good form, number one, and don't always go to failure where you have to like back out in that lift. Failure reps means doing as many reps as you can until you fail. Usually this is done as a finisher from a workout or as your last set of a lift. Drop sets is another way to accomplish this as failure reps. So I like to do failure reps on something very small at the end of my workouts, whether that's lateral delt raises, maybe it's push-ups, maybe it's lunges, something like that, depending on what I'm training that day. It's just doing as many reps as you can until you fail. And drop set is another way to achieve that. And drop sets are, let's say you're on the leg press and you have 15 reps you're doing, and then you go down and you max out how many you can doing 15 reps for that weight, and then you take weight off and you do however many reps you can until you start to hit failure, then you take some weight off. So you just like start to drop your weight down as you're trying to do as many reps as you can. And you'll definitely feel this hits fatigue very, very quickly. Specifically, I know leg extensions trying to do this. It's like impossible. I can't even get out of the machine after I do drop sets. You're just like so exhausted and your legs can't even move. But max rep is the amount of weight that a person can possibly lift for one rep. It may also be considered as a maximum amount of force that can be generated from one maximal contraction, or in Cat Elite Fitness, it is a 2 to 3 rep max. So the most weight you can do for a solid 2 to 3 reps without ability to do one more rep. Training to failure is not being able to do any additional concentric reps on a set without getting an assist, so from somebody else assisting you with the movement, or lowering the amount of weight used. And then actually using one of the two methods, forced reps or drop sets, to do a few more reps before hitting true failure. So say you're doing curls, you rep out at 8, but then you do a few more reps, but either by having someone spot you a few or quickly yanking off a plate or two before continuing the set. So it's difficult to know. This was one question I kind of found within the things I was looking into and my own questions myself, is how often should it be going to failure? You know, should it be on every set, just the last set? Should it be done in single joint exercises? Should it only be done on a certain testing day? Honestly, I have to think about how I want to answer that, because I didn't get an answer to that, because I'm not 100% confident in saying one way or another. Yes, we're going to have testing days where you're actually going to go for maxes, but you can also train to failure. I don't know. I think it would be safe to do it 1 to 2 times a week, depending on how much you're lifting. If you're somebody that's weight training 5 times a week, maybe 1 to 2 lifts, you're actually going to failure on all those things, even when I have a given set for you. But in that given set, you're hitting failure with that. Does that make sense? So if there's 10 reps listed on your workout, I want you to hit 10, and 10, you can't go past it. You don't have reps in reserve. Like, that's what I want from you guys. So there could be a couple days where you're actually training like that, or I don't know. I haven't seen enough research to see that every single workout you do, every single set is training to failure. I think that would just be too much on your body. Like, I know we have to have failure for muscle hypertrophy and strengthening, but I think to do it on every single set of every workout to train to failure, I think your body would start not doing things it's supposed to do. Maybe give yourself a couple weeks off if you're doing it that way, whatever. So I guess I put that question out there, and I'm not really sure what I feel about it, what I feel is appropriate. But I guess the moral of the story is I want you to be pushing your weights for whatever reps are given and making that's all you can do. And if you don't have higher weights to move up to, then I want you to rep that out. If I gave you 10 reps, but you can't bump up in weight, whatever it takes, I want you to get fatigued there. So rep it out if you can, or maybe add in another set of something. If you have maybe 4 sets of that exercise, maybe add in 1 more set because you can't bump up a weight, but guess what? We can always increase volume. So can't you just tell me exactly what weight percentage to use? And I could, and here's why I think it would be a mistake. Number 1, you would learn less about yourself in training, helping you develop self-awareness and ability to regulate or adjust your training to you and your daily readiness, meaning that, hey, you know you're not feeling too hot today. It might be okay for you to recognize you're not feeling hot, like that 10-pound dumbbell kind of feels pretty heavy. I want you to be smart enough that you can ask yourself these questions and know that, you know what, I should be adjusting my training based off of how I feel. And it's important if you want to be a thoughtful and independent athlete that you can be this and have more self-awareness for you and your training. And honestly, I would be more likely to get the wrong prescription for you, or maybe just less right, without the use of rate of perceived exertion or using reps in reserve. So you might not see reps in reserve written for you because it's a little more complicated, and I hadn't really had a chance to go over it like this. And I also don't have any training set up. So once I get, I've been working on this forever, but I want to get an actual like educational course for you guys to go through, or not just you guys, but when I bring on new clients, I want them to go through, number 1, like the functional assessment that I do. I want to do that and have them submit videos back to me. So they're actually watching and learning through a course and then submitting it back. And then having things like this on there, like even tracking macros, things like that. Like I want them to know these things. So if I don't have an office hour that they haven't heard, I want them to be able to have all this stuff so they can come with a different base of knowledge rather than just you guys who are just learning as we go along. I don't touch on some things that I probably should touch on a lot sooner. So it is a little bit more complicated to understand reps in reserve, and you guys are all doing your RPE first. So that rate of perceived exertion is what you're all doing anyways, which is built into that training program. And also I give you rep ranges, and I don't give you weights typically to use because, like I said, I don't know your base. Like I don't know what weights you've currently been using, how long it's been since you've touched that weight. So it would just be not even beneficial for me to give you a certain weight to use, but rather percentages or using these RPE scales, reps in reserve, those things like that. And then I just wanted to finish off just touching on some language of workouts. This is pulled from, it was a coaching office hour that I did with another coach just off of like beginner level training, like understanding language. So I just pulled this back from there again to show you guys. HIIT versus list or list, that is high intensity interval training, is doing something like 20 seconds high intensity, 40-second recovery. The work to rest ratio is 1-to-1, which will be the hardest. So super hard. So let's say you're doing 20 seconds high intensity, 20 seconds recovery. 20 seconds, like you go back and forth like that. That is the hardest, not enough time for rest. Or you can do a 1-to-2 ratio and upwards to 1-to-6. So 1-to-2 is pretty much ideal. Lessening the rest time is much harder, more intense, and can lead to more injury and overuse or hormonal issues. And then think of sprinting 200 meters with a walk back of 200 meters. It will most likely take double the time it took you to sprint it as you're getting back. So proper recovery, that is most beneficial, but you have to remember it is high intensity, not moderate intensity, not, well, I think I'm trying hard. It is high intensity. Like it has to be your best effort, the most that you can give. It can be with body weight, with weights, cycling, whatever it be. You can do HIIT in a lot of different ways. HIIT can even be done running up hills. It can be done in elliptical, Stairmaster, whatever it is. It's just that work to rest ratio and actually being high intense. Low intensity steady state is what this list is. Low intensity steady state. It is that walking casual pace to hold conversation, or it's low to moderate intensity for a longer duration. So example, walking 1 hour and jogging. So somebody that's a marathon runner, going on a jog is their list. That's their low intense steady state, and they know how to back off their training. If you're a really experienced athlete, you know what your high intensity feels like. and you know what your low intensity feels like. So if this is a jog for you where you could actually start to hold a conversation, that might be LISS for you. And somebody else, just a walk. No hills, because I can't breathe when I walk up hills, but just a walk. So the goal is to keep your heart rate around 50 to 65% of your maximum heart rate. And some more examples of this are cycling, brisk walking, swimming, or other cardio activities that require longer sessions of low intensity exercise. So see here how cycling is LISS, and it can also be HIIT. What's the difference? Your intensity. Both are great for fat loss. One for more experienced, which would be HIIT. One for hormonal health, which would be LISS. One is better for stress management, LISS. And one for burning more calories and muscle hypertrophy would be HIIT. So make your choice. Which do you want? You know, they're both beneficial in many different ways, but they do come with a consequence. I would say the consequence for HIIT would be the hormonal issues and the injury related to that you can have. And then for LISS, it would just be, it's going to take you longer to get the same effect as it would be for HIIT. So pick whichever one you want. Superset versus triset versus straight sets and giant sets. What are all these things? Superset is performing 2 exercises back to back, then rest. Triset is, you guessed it, same thing, but there are 3 exercises. Giant set is a large list of exercises. Maybe you have like 6 different exercises. You just go one time through. That could be your giant set. Maybe you go a couple times through at most, but typically just a large list of exercises. And there is minimal rest between these. Maybe a walk to the next machine where it's at. But the goal is to keep moving and do opposite muscle work. So while biceps are resting from curls, you may be doing tricep dips or something like that. And straight sets, this, I don't know why I didn't finish this and put it on here, but straight sets are, say you have on your program, let's just say curls, 3 sets of 10. You would just stay at curls and do 3 sets of 10. Do that first set of the curls, rest however long you need, back to the second set of curls. So it's just that same exercise going straight through it, rather than superset is going this one, okay, back to this one, back to this one. Typically I like to do trisets. I mostly do quad sets, to be honest. I like 4 exercises and working between them. So I go in between that range of 3 to 4 exercises and working through them. I just like to be constantly moving. I don't like much rest unless I'm doing a strength focus, which is what my big lifts are going to be. So my deadlift, my squat, like any variation of those, bench or whatever, I will stay and do a straight set of that, giving myself proper rest in between so I can really push for weights there. But for my accessory movements and my circuits and things like that, I just roll through it. And yeah, my heart rate's pretty high too. Tempo. So this one I would like to implement with you guys, and I do for most of your things. You'll see a tempo written, or I more so will say 5-second eccentric lowering or something along those lines. So that's kind of the most basic way of me to explain it, is just to write how long I want you to be, how long I want you to take going down through a lift and coming back up. But this is a lot more, I wouldn't say a lot more, but it's more advanced. So I would like to get here with some of you guys too. So you will see things written as 3, 0, 1, 1. And this means there's a 3-second count for your concentric, a 0-second rest or pause, a 1-second back up to the beginning of the movement, which would be eccentric, and 0 rest before the concentric movement. So let's think of a bicep curl. All right, so actually, I think the first one is eccentric. I can't remember. 3 seconds, bring the arm to your chest. 0 rest at the top. 1 second to come back down. 0 seconds to start at the bottom. So a measure of this is by intensity, or by gauge. A measure of intensity by gauging and measuring time under tension. And that's another word to go under this, but it all means the same thing. If you're doing something for a longer period going down, like this is eccentric, that's more time under tension. And you might have done this in, I think some people I have it for squats. I like to do this a lot on squats, where you slowly move down into your squat. Maybe that's a 3 to 5 second count. You come up quick, and then you have like a 1 second rest, and you go back down 3 to 5 seconds. Or maybe it is a rest pause squat where you're moving down. Okay, 1 second, you're holding at the top. 1 second, you move down, holding at the bottom for maybe 3 seconds. A 1, 2, 3, come back up. 1 second rest, 1 second, moving down, 3 second rest, pause at the bottom. So pretty sure I just need to double check this and verify that the first one is the concentric. I'm pretty sure it is. I'll get back to you guys about this one. Intensity, resistance, weight, and load. This is all the same thing. Interchangeable words, all related to your intensity, and that is basically how much weight you're using or how heavy or light your sets were. But all interchangeable. Load, weight, resistance, intensity, all can be used as the same thing. DOMS is delayed onset muscle soreness. It is 24 to 40 hours is normal. So you shouldn't finish leg day and not be able to walk for 2 or more days. It should be about a maximal of 2 days that you're feeling the soreness. And if it's over 2 days that you're still feeling wacko crazy sore from whatever it was you trained, that was overtraining and that was probably not smart. You might have went just a little too hard. Overtraining equals metabolic stress because now we have to pull more stuff to the area that you injured or that you worked really, really hard at to repair. And now we're more prone to injury. Now hormones are whack and just kind of don't do it. If you've ever had a conditioning week or day, if you were in sports, that was not appropriate. You couldn't walk for about a week after doing some of that stuff on conditioning day. So just know that it should be about 1 to 2 days. That's it. And some things to really help this are baths, stretching, ice baths, walking after your workout, things like that can really help this delayed onset muscle soreness. Reps versus sets. I don't even really need to explain this. I feel like you guys know the difference. Reps are the amount of muscle contractions you do in a given set. A set is a complete list of your frequency of your lift. So 3 sets of 10, you guys know what that is. And I already mentioned reps in reserve. So this is just different ways to build muscle. I don't really know if you guys really need to know this, but you can do it in many different ways. High reps, low reps, volume sets. So instead of doing 3 sets of 10, maybe you're doing 4 sets of 6. That's volume. Progressive overload, sets to failure. You can do it with body weight. Recovery, actually you get stronger when you give yourself more recovery, whether that's recovery between sets. Maybe you're taking 2 to 3 minutes before you go into your lift again, or that's true recovery. Maybe you're only training 3 times a week and that's strength focused, and that's it. Burnout sets, doing max amount of reps with weight until failure. That can also be failure reps, like I mentioned earlier. Drop sets, pushing out as many reps as you can for whatever reps that is, dropping the weight, doing the same thing again until you can't move it anymore, keep dropping the weight, blah, 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 blah. You can also warm up by doing it in reverse. So let's say you're doing lateral delt raises, you're doing 5 pounds for 20 reps. Now you're bumping up to 10 pounds and now you're doing 20 reps, or you're trying to go as many reps as you can, the higher weight that you go. So it can also be done in reverse. Pre-fatigue, this is maybe doing like body weight push-ups before you go into a bench press. It's just really getting your body to pay attention to the muscles that we're getting ready to use and kind of pre-fatiguing them. Same thing can be done with curls as well. Maybe that's doing super lightweight that we're doing max reps at or whatever, and we kind of pre-fatigue that area. Rest pause sets, already kind of talked about this. Resting or pause, this should be a slash because they can both be the same thing. Holding it at the bottom of your squat for maybe a 2, 4, 5 second count, whatever it is. Maybe that's in your split squats, something like that. Eccentric only, talk to you what that one is. That is moving away from your body, slowly lowering a movement. Concentric is coming back up from the movement, so getting back to your resting spot. Usually you want your concentric to be fast and your eccentric to be slow. We're lengthening the muscle when we're doing eccentric. Concentric, we're tightening it, we're bringing it closer together. Stretch sets, an example of this would be bent over rows. So really stretching out your shoulder retractors before the movement equals full range. So instead of just doing, okay, let's say I'm doing rows and I'm just starting here and I'm just going this way. Oh yeah, I'm working my shoulders, right? You can still are, but a stretch set is really opening up your back, really stretching out that muscle, and now we pull. So we're going through a much larger range by stretching it out. Blood flow restriction training. I have been very curious about this. I can buy these bands on Amazon. They've been in my shopping cart for quite a while. But this is basically doing the same thing as, let's say, sprinting and weightlifting. It's all restricting oxygen to an area. Sprinting, you're breathing and you're huffing and puffing as fast as you can, but are you actually taking a lot of oxygen? No, that is not happening. Distance running, swimming, things like that for longer intensity, then you can breathe. You're actually doing that oxygen exchange. But anaerobic is what we call it, what sprinting is, and so is weightlifting. So essentially what you're doing with blood flow restriction is you're wrapping a certain area. So say you wrap your lower quad, you put a band around your quad, whatever it is. I don't know exactly the areas because I'm not experiencing that at all, but you basically are withholding blood to that area and you're pumping it out. Maybe that's just doing leg extensions with that thing over your quad. It's blocking blood from your muscle that you're using so that we're really pulling more anaerobic effects on that leg. So a lot of people use this for rehab too, just to really help with withholding the oxygen. And then as well, when you release it and let that new oxygen flow, it's supposed to be a lot better and a lot more cleaner blood, whatever. I don't know. There's a lot of good research out there for it, but I've always been interested in it. So that is something I probably will do at some point in time. Frequency, intensity, type, and time. This is how to program your workouts. For example, frequency, 3 to 5 times a week. Intensity, is that the amount of weight you're using? Is that the 5 sets of 6 to 8? That's kind of your intensity as well. Time, is it a 30, 60-minute workout? How long is it? And what type are you doing? Weightlifting, cardio, sprinting, HIIT, and you can get really specific down and dirty to those two for that specific workout. Machine, cable, barbell, med ball, kettlebell, body weight, incline, decline, split stance, rear foot elevated, single limb, double limb, seated, standing, kneeling, you name it, we can make it and progress it. So, a lot of lingo there. So if you guys have any questions, hit them at me. I love questions because that lets me research some more too. Just go ahead and unmute yourself if you do have questions. Super cotton mouth this time. Well, I have questions about that. What was it I asked? Oh yeah. Should you be training to failure every single workout exercise? That's my question. I guess that also just depends on what your goals are. You know, are you truly wanting to muscle hypertrophy every single set? I don't know. I guess it depends on your goals. So I'm not really sure what I think on that either.
I guess one of my questions would be, the only time I feel like I train to actual mechanical failure is with like bench press, because I want to like get stronger. I think I even put in my note, like, I could not lift without assistance. And I had to drop down weight and I got another set, but then it happened again where like I physically, like I don't know why I like the feeling of like, I like the competition with my body. Like,
yeah,
but I know I have to have good form still. So do you think that's okay? Like I do that with bench press, but I only do that during the bench press, like exercise.
Right. So your guys' programs in particular, if you want it that way, you could do for all your big lifts, that's what you train to failure on. Whether that's any variation of squat, if that's going to be your big lift of the day, what you start with, you want it that way because we are trying to build for strength. But and I'm kind of more asking along the lines of like, okay, what about the rest of the workout, the more accessory stuff where it's kind of like mod reps, like we're doing anywhere from like 8 to 15, like should it be till failure then? That's my question. But for those big lifts, absolutely. I like that you're doing that.
Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy the challenge. I hate it's like the best and worst feeling when I'm pushing up and my arms are going down.
Like,
And I'm like, no. But I'll get it. But yeah, I feel like the big ones I'm good with. But if I did it the entire workout, I think I would just burn out to the point where I would have bad form.
yeah. Or, you know, it is that sense of overtraining of like, well, you're not going to be able to hit chest again or any sort of chest workout exercise until 2-3 days from now. So it's also that factor as well. I had an experience one time. If you're testing for max, even if you get the great idea to do it randomly in your workout, which you guys follow something and I usually just walk in and I'm like, I'm going to do this, whatever. So I was testing for like bench and I had it fall on me, right? And here I am. I'm like, it's on my chest. I'm looking around to see if anybody can help me and nobody was looking at me. I was like, I can't breathe. It's like, I was trying to do everything in my life to get this thing off me and I couldn't. And thank God, it felt like forever. Like when you're actually, felt like I was dying. But like when you're in that moment, you're like 2 seconds seems like a century. So finally somebody saw me and like helped me lift it up. I was number one, so embarrassed. And two, like how the hell, why was nobody like, I was like, I will never do that. That was so stupid. So if I'm training by myself and I feel like I'm getting kind of shaky on my last rep or two, I kind of call it safe because I don't have somebody with me. And I'm like, I'm so fearful of that happening to me again. It was like the worst because now I feel like nowadays people are so much more like into themselves. They're listening to their music. Like they're like, yeah, chilling with their eyes closed. They're like not paying attention at all. So I would be totally screwed if that happened again. But that's awesome. I like that. Squatting makes it, they do have some things that you can set up to make it a little bit easier. If you are testing for near your max for squats, you can pull out those bars so that if you do fail, you can just drop a little bit lower. And yeah, you might have to get help putting it back up, or maybe you have to unrack it, but those breaks right there stop you so you don't go all the way to the floor. I think you could set those up in, if you were in the squat rack maybe, and you were, no, squat, yeah, that wouldn't work, but for sure, squats. Deadlifts, you're just not gonna be able to lift it up, so. Or if you do, your back gives out halfway, you'll just fall backwards or something like that, but let's hope that doesn't happen to anybody. If you guys don't have any questions, I do want to go over, last thing here is that email. I don't know if I sent in an email, but the goals that we, like your quarterly goals, planning on what you want to accomplish in 2021. Did anybody have a chance to look at that, give some thought to it at all? Because if not, guess what's going to be your homework? And this is how I'm going to test homework. So you guys all have your check-ins this week, right? So maybe it's like too late to ask you, but for next week, your check-ins, I want you to submit to me those quarterly goals of, so there's 2 pages I sent you. The first one is like talking about what things went really well for you in 2020, what things didn't go well, what do you want to work on, what are things that are like energy draining for you, and the top 3 things that you want to start doing for the next year. So there's 2 sheets. One looks like that, and then the second sheet is like 4 quarters. So it kind of looks like this, and you literally write down in those quarters things that you want to accomplish for quarter number 1, whatever that is, to get you closer to your overall goal of what do you actually want to get out of 2021? Like, how do we do better? We should always be wanting to do better, no matter who you are. Everybody is always writing goals then of what to accomplish, what to do better so that we can better ourselves, our relationships. Maybe that's your current job. Maybe that's for building a family. Whatever it is, we always have something to work on. And I think it is best when you can actually put your goals, break them down into, okay, I need to accomplish this and this before I really get to my big goal. So how am I going to get to my big goal that I want to be in 2021 or whatever year it is? So breaking them down into smaller obtainable goals that we can reach, say in the first quarter or second quarter. So I want you guys to share those with me next week, but get it in your minds right now. Start thinking about these things. Might have to scroll through, I think WhatsApp, it shows like documents you've attached. I think it's in there as well. You could scroll through and find it. If not, I'll send them out again in an email tomorrow to get you guys to start thinking about it, because it will be your homework. I want to see what you guys want to be. And it also helps me too, because I'm doing it as well for me and my business and stuff like that. So I think you know, why would I learn these things from the top business people, the top entrepreneurs, and not try to give this advice to my clients and what they're looking for? Because it's the same thing, whether you're trying to grow a business or you're trying to grow yourself. My business is me. So at the same time, like, this is all about me and you guys too. What do you bring to the table and what do you want to accomplish? So get those things in your, get those things in your minds, what you are wanting. I think it's a really good idea. So anybody have anything else or want to share anything about their Christmas? I would love to hear some stories.
I was thinking earlier when I logged in, you said what was like your favorite gift, and I had to think about it. Mine was my entire family, like grandparents, aunts, uncles, my boyfriend's family. They all made me a recipe book with all the homemade recipes. So appetizers, dinners, desserts, everything that I grew up on, it's all in there, which was an awesome gift.
Yeah, that is so awesome. I would love something like that. Like,
yeah.
Actually like your family's recipes, not just something.
Right. Yeah. So that was probably the highlight.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. What can I share? Well, mason jars. This was very exciting for me. All my treats mason jars.
I got those metal straws that you had in your cup.
You did?
I got like 15, 20 of them.
Yeah. Okay, here's what you gotta do. You gotta stack them everywhere where you are. So I'll stack some in my car in case I'm getting an iced coffee on the road. Okay. Some in my book bag, some in my purse. So I got one where I'm at. And honestly, it's so funny because I'll go through drive-thrus and they try to give you your drink with their straw. And I'm like, I don't need a straw. And they like get, so like, they kind of get mad at you. I'm like, I have a metal straw. Like, it's like, I shouldn't have to tell them this, but I'm going to be like, yeah, you should probably ask if somebody wants a straw before you just give one out. Because that's why there's so much waste. But Starbucks got better at this. They made some of their cups with just like sippy holes. So the straws, but making progress. Love that. Let me think of anything else. I can't think of anything at the moment. That was my favorite. But I will say the mason jars was number one. I was really excited for that. I knew I was getting it, to be honest, but I was really excited for it.
Do they say ball on them?
Yeah, they're the real deal. And they got lids. I'm so excited. So if I do have to take a drink to go, I just, yeah. All right. If you guys don't have anything else, you don't want to share anything, which is whatever. I'd like to hear some more.
I got this robe.
That looks so comfy.
It's super comfy. Have you heard of Barefoot Dreams? It's just a brand of, and they're like super thick and soft and fluffy. I don't know.
Is that like the blankets on your body?
Yeah.
I like that.
But
Sammy, what about you? I think you might have shared one already, didn't you? She's not on here anymore. Okay, just kidding. Taylor.
Hi.
What was your favorite gift or moment?
I got new training shoes. I'm excited about those. But we also got like an old VCR and we watched all of our old like home videos from when I was like 1 and 2 years old, and it was so cute.
Oh my gosh, yeah, those always make me so sad.
I know.
Let time go.
Yeah, it was really cool to see because I never got to watch them.
So you guys had taken videos, but you haven't got to see them in a long time because you don't have a VCR player, or?
Yeah, we don't have VCR anymore because everything's DVD. So my grandma luckily had one and she just gave it to us. So all of our old home videos were on them, on like VHS tapes.
Yeah, that's so cute. I love that.
Yeah.
My dad transferred a bunch onto DVDs, which that took him so long to do, but that was like, I want to say 8 years ago he did that. But
yeah, we need to do that. That's smart.
Man, that's just like, I get so emotional when I watch like home videos. I'm like, oh my God.
I know.
How little I was and how cute. What happened?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys for sharing, and hopefully it just wasn't an overload of just me blabbing. I'll also drop this in if you guys want to watch it again. I can also put it in the document too in WhatsApp, so you can scroll through there, take a look at some things. But yeah, thank you guys all. Hope you had a great holiday and New Year's. I don't think anybody even knows what they're doing. So
chilling at home.
you guys have some fun
Yep.
stuff. Oh, I did get a deck. Oh, I did get Uno and a deck of cards. I'm pretty pumped about that. Houston Ivers. So if that's what our New Year's Eve is, then okay, whatever. So that's fine. But enjoy this week of trying to get back to some normalcy. So I might come on this week and talk about that tomorrow. Just, I know everybody's kind of feeling like off, right? So diving back into this tomorrow, let's pick back up where we were and really get back into focusing on what we want. What have we been doing? What routines do we have? Let's get back into those, because it is so easy right now to fall off because nobody knows what's going on. Everyone's like, what day is it? I don't know. So don't be that person. Get right back to it all and have a good week.
You too.
Thank you. You too.
Good night.